Hey guys, Tyler here. So this is the third and final edition of my video series called Division Realignment Proposals. And with my gear here, it's a direct reference to the fact that this video is about Major League Baseball. Before we get into my proposed division realignment, I want to kind of explain some things from the last video, the one about the NBA division realignment. Looking back, I should have been more open-minded to shifting teams from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference and vice versa, because I feel like I kind of strapped myself in instead of kind of going into that whole idea with an open mind. So with that being said, this proposal has a little bit more open-mindedness to it. So that's what I want to kind of get into before we get started here. So now appearing on your screens is the current division alignment in Major League Baseball. So now you've gotten a chance to see how the teams are currently aligned division-wise in Major League Baseball. I'm going to go ahead and get into my proposal here that I have on my sheet in front of me. And I'll just go ahead and get started with the American League. And so this is basically just be prepared for some twists with all of this. I said that before the last video, but this one, it's very, very plot twisty in terms of just how I propose that some of the teams be aligned. So let's get into what would be my proposed American League North division. It would include the following teams: the Minnesota Twins, the Detroit Tigers, the Cleveland Indians, and my first proposed expansion franchise, the Montreal Expos. The return of the Montreal Expos. So I'm still old enough to remember when the Washington Nationals were the Montreal Expos, because it happened right around like 2004, 2005, when the Expos relocated to Washington, D.C. and became the Nationals. And there's been rumors going around the past few years about Major League Baseball possibly expanding and adding a couple of franchises. This right here, it's a slam dunk. Because the city of Montreal has been clamoring for the return of the Expos basically ever since they left. And, for those diehard Expos fans, they were left with, well, what do we do? Do we become Nationals fans because that's basically the team that we grew to know and love? Or do we root for the Toronto Blue Jays because they're a Canadian team? Or, basically, who the heck do we root for? So an expansion team in Montreal and having the return of the Expos would solve that problem. And to bring more baseball to Canada would be great, especially with, Canada Day falls during the Major League season. So why not have the Expos and the Blue Jays have a series every year where the teams alternate between hosting the Canada Day series? That would make a whole lot of sense, and it would just bring a sense of pride to the country of Canada on its national holiday, and in the form of a baseball game, between two Canadian teams. So that to me, I think that's a slam dunk, like I said. So let's get into what my proposed American League West division would look like. For the most part, it's not really going to change much. It would be the Seattle Mariners, the Oakland A's, the Anaheim Angels, and the San Diego Padres coming over from the National League. The reason why I emphasize the Anaheim Angels is because their ballpark is in Anaheim. Basically, it makes no sense why a team in Orange County, which is where Anaheim is located, would try to get into the LA market. They're not in LA, they're in Anaheim. Two completely different cities. But that is a rant for another day. So, the Anaheim Angels. And yes, it would mostly be a California-based division, but whether it be the National League West division that I'm going to propose here in a little while, or this division on the American League side, one of those divisions would have 3 California teams, because in Major League Baseball there are 5 MLB franchises in the state of California. So either way, one of the leagues is going to have majority of those teams. So I figured, why not put the Padres in there? I think it'd be great to have them as part of the American League. And I know that with the universal DH last year, and it's being floated around as an idea for this coming season, and I hope it becomes a permanent rule, because honestly, I think having the DH would open up the free agent market to guys that ordinarily would probably exclusively play first base, just to have their bat in the lineup. And honestly, it would make games more competitive, because if you have, for the most part, these major league pitchers have not swung the bat competitively on a near everyday basis since like high school. So a lot of them, they just don't even try, really, because it's why try? And even if they hit the ball in play, they're barely going to make it out of the batter's box. So why not have in that spot a designated hitter instead of the pitcher? So hopefully, and maybe by the time this video airs, maybe it will have already been a rule to have a universal DH going forward. So I definitely, that's my hope, is that the universal DH becomes a permanent thing, because with the success that it had last year, albeit in a pandemic shortened season, I think it'd be a great idea moving forward. So, anywho, let's move on to what my American League South division would look like. It would include the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros, and here's where it gets really, really interesting. The St. Louis Cardinals, coming over from the National League, and the Kansas City Royals. Because it would be a benefit, honestly, one way or another, to have the Royals and the Cardinals in the same division, so that we can play each other more in what's known in Major League Baseball as the I-70 series. I think it'd be interesting, and under this proposal, assuming there is a universal DH, it wouldn't matter in that sense if the Cardinals are in the National League or the American League, or vice versa with the Kansas City Royals. So that wouldn't matter. But I think it'd be great if they someday were in the same division. And the American League East division would look basically the same, just minus the Tampa Bay Rays, which I'll get into later. So the East division would be the Red Sox in Boston, of course, the New York Yankees, the Baltimore Orioles, and the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, technically, based on location, I couldn't justify putting the Montreal Expos and the Toronto Blue Jays in the same division, because technically Montreal is, well, I mean, obviously it's in a different part of Canada from Toronto, but it's kind of closer to the central time zone, or at least the central part of the United States, which is kind of near where Minnesota, Detroit are located. They wouldn't be too incredibly far from Cleveland. But at the very least, if I couldn't put those two Canada teams in the same division, they're at least in the same league. So they play each other quite a bit. So, anywho, on to the National League. And let's start with the National League East, which would basically look mostly the same from last year. It'd be the Washington Nationals, the Philadelphia Phillies, the New York Mets, and the Pittsburgh Pirates is the first change that would happen, because think about this. Currently, the Pittsburgh Pirates are in the National League Central when they play in Pennsylvania, which is not even close to the center part of the United States and the other 4 teams in that division. So I decided to solve that problem by putting them in the same division as their in-state rival, the Philadelphia Phillies. Makes perfect sense, right? Alright, nothing more. So the National League West, under my proposal, would also be largely unaffected. Basically, the only addition would be the subtraction of the San Diego Padres to the American League West. So the remaining 4 teams would be the Los Angeles Dodgers, the San Francisco Giants, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Colorado Rockies. Basically, kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So that was basically my concept with the National League West. And so the next 2 divisions is where it gets really, really interesting. The National League North division would be comprised of the Cincinnati Reds, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Chicago Cubs, and the Chicago White Sox. Because why not have those 2 teams in the same division? You know, kind of like with Pittsburgh and the Pirates and the Phillies. And you know, kind of what I did in this next division coming up, by trying to keep in the American League South as well, trying to keep teams in the same state, in the same division as much as possible. So, yeah. So the White Sox would go from the current American League Central to my proposed National League North division. Because it would make some sense, you know, with how the other 3 teams in that division would be aligned under my proposal. And so the National League South division would include the Atlanta Braves, the Miami Marlins, and that other Florida team, the Tampa Bay Rays, coming over from the American League. And last but certainly not least, my second proposed expansion franchise, the Nashville Fury. Think about this. If there is a diehard baseball fan living in Nashville, Tennessee, or just really anywhere in Tennessee and Kentucky, for example, if they want to root for a major league team, who are you going to pick? You know, if you're born and raised in Nashville, weren't raised watching baseball as a kid, but as you get older and your friends expose you to baseball and you fall in love with it, who are you going to root for? I mean, you could root for the Cardinals because they're not incredibly far from Nashville, all things considered. You could root for any of the Chicago teams because they're not all that far away. You could root for the Cleveland Indians or the Cincinnati Reds. Or you could go down south and root for the Atlanta Braves. I mean, there's no perfect solution. But, I think with the city of Nashville, for example, on the schedule this year for the IndyCar series, they added a Nashville Grand Prix. And Nashville, as a whole community, is excited about that, about the concept of bringing IndyCar racing to their streets in Nashville. So that'd be, in this concept, it'd be pretty much the same thing. You know, you got baseball fans that are living there, that are born and raised there, maybe didn't watch a whole lot of baseball as a kid, but as they're aging into adults, they love the game of baseball. They don't know who to root for. So why not plop a baseball team in that community? I think, honestly, it might take a while, but I think eventually the city of Nashville would rally behind having a major league team in their city, and I think they would honestly go for it. I think they would love it over the long haul, and it could serve that market, in like just the whole state of Tennessee. Then you could also reach into Kentucky, the state right above you, and draw in some fans from that state as well. And like neighboring states like Virginia, for example. I mean, if you don't want to be a Nationals fan or a Baltimore Orioles fan, you could root for Nashville. I mean, it's not entirely out of the question. So, the reason why I picked Fury for the national team, it kind of embraces I think the passion that the city and the larger community would have towards having a team in that location. I think Fury just kind of sounds cool as a team name, and think about the logo options that you could go with that. I mean, you could use so many different options for a logo that, I mean, the possibilities are endless. So I think that'd be great. So that wraps up this video. Again, thank you guys for watching, and continue to support my YouTube channel and all of my fun, wacky projects that I like to do. That is purely on the side for free. I don't get paid to do this. I do this because I just love it. It's something that gives me something to do in my free time, that I'm passionate about, and that I love to do. So until next time, have a great day. Take care. Stay safe. God bless.